the, okay, I can only see the participants, so I haven't really got a sense of how many people are actually participating, but welcome everybody to this month's Blockchain at UBC monthly research talk. And it's a real pleasure this month to have some of our students who have been working on research projects over the summer, and even before then, present on their research. And I'm delighted because it really showcases not only the diversity of our students, but the diversity of the research that they're doing as part of a very multidisciplinary research center here at Blockchain at UBC. So it's indeed my pleasure. And I think that what I'm going to do is just briefly go over the presentations, and I'm going to introduce the students very briefly because we have very limited time for their presentations. So we're going to start with Jianyu, and Jian is a PhD student in the School of Engineering in the Okanagan campus of the University of British Columbia. And he's going to be talking about selfish mining in Bitcoin. And everyone, I think, should have received a synopsis of the presentations, but I'm not going to go into those in detail because, of course, you'll hear all about that from Jian himself. And we're next going to have Anisha Dillon. And Anisha is going to be talking about, Anisha is a dual Master of Archival Studies and Master of Library and Information Studies student at UBC School of Information. And Anisha is going to be talking about research that she did over the summer, looking at different approaches to introducing technology to respond to COVID-19 challenges like tracking and tracing technology. She'll be followed by Artem Voskobozhnikov, who is a PhD student in the School of, in the Department of Computer Science. It's the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at UBC. I think that's the typo there. And at UBC's Point Grey campus. And he's going to be talking about his own research on risk perception. So he works in the area of usable security, risk perceptions, and security behaviors of crypto asset users. So that'll be very interesting and relevant research as well. And then finally, last but not least, Chelsea Palmer, who's a master's student in library and information science at UBC School of Information, will be talking about work she did this summer on blockchain for climate, for the Climate Foundation, and a multidisciplinary design approach of an Ethereum prototype. So welcome to all the students. I'm so proud of all the research that you have done. So looking forward. So Jianyu, over to you to kick us off.
Okay. Thanks, Vicky, for the introduction. And today my topic is incentive in blockchains. And my name is Jianyu, and I'm a third-year PhD student. My research focused on blockchain and especially in consensus and incentive design. So, okay. I start with the introduction of blockchain. So maybe many of you are familiar with blockchain, and I want to give a quick introduction. So in blockchain, and the client's transactions are batched into blocks, and each block contains a hash value of the previous block. Through the hash reference, blocks are linked into chain structure. So in blockchain, nodes will eventually make agreement of the same chain of blocks. So to produce blocks, nodes use proof of work specifically, and in each block there is a random string, and which is also called nonce. So by changing the value of nonce, we can change the hash value of the whole block. So to find a new block, nodes need to find a worded nonce, which can make the hash value of the whole block that start with a given number of leading zeros here. So if announce and he can't, if the manner try announce which can't make the hash value start with the start with the given number of leading zeros, the nonce is invalid. So it's easy to see that by controlling the number of leading zeros, we can control the difficulty. We can control the difficulty of mining a new block. And furthermore, we can use the difficulty to control the block interval. Okay, here is a simple case that the miner found a worthless nonce and then a block is mined. The block production process is also called mining, and nodes who produce blocks are called miner. In Bitcoin and all the miners, they are connected through the peer-to-peer network. So each miner stores the received block. So when a miner finds a new block, it will transmit this block to its neighbors, and its neighbors will relay this block to other nodes. So this block will eventually arrive at all the miners, and each miner, they produce blocks on the longest chain. So to incentivize miners to participate in the block mining, there are two rewards in Bitcoin. The first one is block reward. Every block included in the longest chain will bring its owner a block reward. And the second reward is transaction fee. And the transaction fee is set to encourage miner to include transactions in their block. Nowadays, miners, they buy FPGA and GPU and even ASIC to do mining, and so it's very important to guarantee fairness, and that is miners should win rewards which is proportional to their computation power. So if fairness can't be guaranteed, there will be some incentive-based attacks, and the security of the whole blockchain will be affected. So we have in the previous studies, they ask the question: if miners deviate from the protocol, can they obtain a revenue larger than their fair share? Yes, the answer is yes. So in 2014, there is a new attack called selfish mining, which shows that if the miner controls more than 33% of the computation power, he can always gain more. Okay. So next, I will introduce the model of the selfish mining. Here we consider a group of miners, and Alice is the selfish miner, and she wants to gain more, and so we use 3 parameters, and alpha, beta, and gamma. Alpha and beta denote the fraction of computation power owned by Alice and honest miners respectively, and gamma denotes Alice's ability to win risk condition. So next, I will show you how to analyze the selfish mining attack. Yeah. So with these 2 parameters, we can use Markov model to illustrate the mining strategy. So here we use the state to denote the private block of Alice. So at the beginning, we suppose Alice has the same view of chain with other honest nodes. So the state is 0. So when Alice happens to find a new block, and the system will transit from 0 to 1, and Alice mines another block, and the system enters to state 2, and the third block, and so the system enters state 3. And at that time, if honest miner found a block, and they will publish their block immediately, and this block will be known by Alice. So when Alice hears the block, she will publish one block to match this block. Okay, and this block will arrive at other oyster nodes. So if oyster miners continue to mine blocks, and Alice receives this block, and Alice will publish two blocks together. So the system will transit from state 2 to state 0. So next, let's look at another example. In this case, Alice first finds a new block, and so the system enters state 1, and then some oyster miners found a new block, and they publish this block. So at that time, Alice published its own block. So there will be two blocks, and there will be two forking blocks. So the system will enter the 0 prime. So the state 0 prime denotes the forking case where there are two forking branches. Both of them have they have the same length. So here we introduce the parameter gamma. Gamma denotes the fraction of oyster miners who mine on Alice block. So here, in Bitcoin, when there are two forking branches of the same length, miners always produce their next block on the first block that they have received. So when Alice hears some new oyster blocks, it will publish. She will publish it her block immediately. If her block arrive at some oyster nodes more quickly than this oyster nodes and this oyster block, and some oyster nodes some oyster miners will choose to mine on Alice block. So in this state, there are three subcases. The first one is that Alice mines a block on its own block. Okay, here. And the second subcase is that some oyster miner produce the next block on Alice block. And the third one is that the oyster miners produce a new block on oyster block. So here. So there are some three subcases. And the third case is that if the oyster nodes happen to find a new block, and Alice has no private block. At this time, if Alice knows this block, it will accept it. So you will see a self transition from state 0 to state 0. So with the Markov model of the selfish mining strategy, we can analyze the reward. We can analyze the revenue for both Alice and the oyster miners. Here we can see one example, and let's revisit the example here. No, this one. Yeah, in this example, okay, we can see the block rewards for the Alice. So in this case, the oyster nodes, some oyster nodes find a new block, and Alice will publish two blocks together. According to the longest chain, all the following miners will produce block on Alice block. So in this case, Alice will win two block rewards in this state transition, and the public will lose one block reward. So from the state transition, we can compute the block rewards won by Alice and the oyster miners respectively. So yeah, you look at, okay, yeah, here. So with the Markov model, we can compute the revenue for both Alice and the oyster nodes, and then we can compute the relative gain of Alice, and that is the final result. And this figure shows the the figure shows the above equation, and from the figure we can see that when gamma equals to zero, and is the red line, we can see there's and the green line is the green line denotes the honest money, and we can see some cross point, and for the cross point, the alpha is 33. That means if alpha is bigger than 33, and the red line is always higher than is always above the green line. That means Alice can always gain more profits from selfish money than honest money. So we can look at another example, and when gamma equals to 1, and we can see that the blue line is always higher than the green line. That means in this condition, the selfish mining is always profitable than the honest mining. So through the selfish mining, we can given the threshold, security threshold. So how about the selfish mining in Ethereum? As Ethereum adopts the similar protocol as Bitcoin, but it except that it introduced 2 new block type, uncle and nephew block type. And so here we can here I will introduce the uncle and the nephew block. So before introduce uncle and nephew block, I need to introduce a regular and a stale block. So what is a regular block? A regular block is a block that is included in the longest chain. As I said previously, all the block in the longest chain will be accepted by all the miners. Otherwise, the block will be abandoned by miners. So as we can see, these blocks are called regular block, and the B1, B3, and C2 and D2 are called stale block because they are not included in the longest chain. So what is an uncle block? An uncle block is a direct child of a regular block. Here we can see B1 and B3 is direct child of a regular block, so it's an uncle block. And the C2 isn't a uncle block because it's a child of a stale block, so it's not an uncle block. So nephew block is a regular block who include the hash reference of some uncle block. So a nephew block is both a regular block and a nephew block. So for these blocks, there are corresponding rewards, and as we can see, Ethereum has 4 block rewards for miners, and the uncle and the nephew block, uncle and the nephew reward are new in Ethereum. So with the rewards we can here, and the nephew block reward in Ethereum is fixed, but the value of uncle block reward is depends on the distance between the uncle and the nephew block. So here we can see this example, and when the nephew block C1 reference uncle block B3, the distance is 1, and so with the distance we can compute the corresponding value of the uncle block reward. So with this new rewards mechanism, we can analyze the selfish mining. So we give some selfish mining strategy, and we can draw the Markov model of state transition. As you can see, after introducing uncle and nephew rewards, the whole analysis becomes complicated, and we need some new mathematical tools or methods to deal with this problem. So here are some results, and from the figure we can see when the gamma equals to 1/2, and the threshold of making selfish mining profitable is about 20%. So it's much lower. It's lower than the threshold in Bitcoin. That implies after and this implies introducing uncle and nephew rewards will reduce the security level of the blockchain. So from the incentive analysis, we can know the security level, and we can know, then we can propose some new protocol to thwart these attacks. And for more results, you can check our paper and self-share mining in Ethereum. So except Ethereum, there are more protocols, and there is a new generation of blockchain protocols, and they have better throughput and better latency. But the incentive analysis and design are not clear in these protocols, so we have more to do. And except all these proof of work based protocols, there are BFT protocol, and there are some state of the art BFT protocols like the hot stuff, Libra, or Pala. You may hear some of them. And except the BFT and the POW, we also have proof of stake and the proof of authority. So Ethereum is planning to use proof of stake in the next generation platform. So we still have a lot of work to do. And except the self-mining attack, and there are another incentive analysis about the incentive in mining pools. Nowadays, miners join some big mining pool to share the rewards. So there are some rewards policy, and using this policy, can miners gain more revenue from them? And so can they have some new attacks? The answer is yes, and there are attacks like the block withholding attack and the fork after withholding attack. Both of them are very famous, and so the incentive analysis of the blockchain, there are many incentive analysis of blockchain. Yeah, so
Great. Thank
yeah,
you
thank you.
so much, Jianyu. Thank you so much. That's fantastic work. And because we're running a little bit behind, I'm sure that there are questions from the listeners. So I'm going to remind everyone to post your questions on the Q&A that you see at the bottom of your screen. And Jianyu, you can look and see and respond to those online.
Okay.
And if there's time, we can come back maybe to have a further discussion at the end.
Okay.
But again, thank you very much for that really, really interesting work. I'll be posting my questions soon. So I'm going to turn it over now to Anisha Dillon. Anisha, if you're ready to go and present your, if you've got slides to share. And Anisha is as I mentioned it before, a master's student in the School of Information in Archival Studies and Library and Information Studies. So she's taking the 2 dual degrees. So over to you, Anisha.
Hi everyone, I'll be turning my camera off in a second. Just wanted to have my blazer make an appearance. I'm on company Wi-Fi, so on my personal computer, it's very slow, so I will be turning video off now.
And your sound, I don't know if you can turn up your sound or get a little closer to your mic, Anisha, because you're a little quiet.
Is that, I'm just gonna hold it.
Better, that's better, yeah.
Okay. So I'll just be going over the agenda first for this presentation. So first, I'll briefly discuss how this research was part of a COVID-19 rapid publication working group project funded by the Peter Wall Institute for Advanced Studies. Following that, I will present an overview of the research and discuss some of the project outcomes. In this section, I will introduce the background and context for the research objectives, the methodology, and introduce the 4 orienting perspectives as recommended by the working group. After that, we'll take a closer look at an environment scan that I conducted on how novel technologies, including blockchain technology, have been used in response to the pandemic. And then we'll have some questions if we have time. So at this point, I think I've mentioned witness webinar working group or working group several times. And if you're not Dr. Lemieux, Michelle, or Dr. Liu, you're probably wondering what or who the heck it is. So the webinar working group formed as a result of a project funded by the Peter Wall Institute for Advanced Studies. Applications for working groups called for an innovative, unconventional approach to understanding and addressing the challenges posed by COVID-19 and society's response to it. So in response, our working group held a one-day witness webinar via the Zoom platform on May 5th to discuss the value tensions that arise between the immediate need to address public health crises while respecting citizen privacy. So the group lead was Dr. Victoria Lemieux, and I had the opportunity to assist as a graduate research assistant on this project. So moving on to the research, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So for background and context, it's first critical to recognize that at the height of the pandemic, so if you can remember back then, governments from around the world were grappling for approaches to technology-enabled solutions in response to COVID-19 challenges. However, the use of novel technologies such as contract tracing apps, quarantine enforcement apps, immunity passports, and blockchain raised important concerns with regard to the protection of individual freedoms and privacy, calling for a policy framework to guide responsible implementation. So the challenges centering on COVID-19, public health, technological innovations motivated our focal research question. Can governments respond to the COVID-19 pandemic with technological innovations and respect citizen privacy? The objective of this research was to gather expert opinion and a range of perspectives on data privacy and protection in order to inform the development of policy framework for government decision makers, such as ministers of health and others tasked with assessing whether and how to apply novel technological approaches in response to the pandemic. In terms of methodology, we use the witness seminar methodology, which developed in the 1990s to facilitate and publish group discussions on selected topics in the history of medicine. So essentially, each witness contributes to an oral history without the goal of reaching consensus. Our witness webinar included 22 expert lead witnesses from Canada, the US, Australia, UK, Ireland, Japan, and Switzerland. And each witness was from a diverse background related to public health, digital technology, law, ethics, privacy. And these witnesses presented a 5-minute public statement, very short, representing their views on the focal question to general participants. The webinar proceedings were transcribed using transcription software, and lead witnesses were given an opportunity to edit their statements and add external resources. The proceedings were then published and coded to identify key themes. So our data analysis draws upon these witness statements. We used grounded theory framework and discourse analysis to draw insights to inform policymaking. The lead witnesses' statements were made available as proceedings and a call to action policy brief, which aimed to synthesize the views of these experts related to COVID-19 technology and data privacy, and offer potential solutions to inform public policy decision-making and privacy-preserving technology design. So in my role, I conducted supplementary research to support outcome goals and produced an environment scan of how novel technologies, including blockchain, are being applied across various jurisdictions in response to the pandemic. And as I mentioned, I will we'll take a closer look at this later. So in their statements, the witnesses highlighted the following concerns: mass surveillance and loss of freedoms. And this was some witnesses looking back at past historical events where tracking and surveillance of citizen activities continued after a crisis. So these anxieties really highlighted how temporary data collection and surveillance can be extended or made permanent. Obtaining citizen consent was also examined, as some witnesses pointed to a flaw in the current approaches. Some witnesses argued that the use of unconsented data is crucial and permissible in the context of a pandemic. Some lead witnesses also mentioned the adverse impact of excessive privacy protection on public health data, especially as a barrier to secondary use for clinical data in medical research. There were also discussions about discrimination and marginalization as lead witnesses discussed fears of mass data collection of already marginalized populations and communities. So in their statements, witnesses emphasized for the need for human-centered, collaborative, privacy-by-design applications and the use of privacy-preserving technologies such as blockchain. And taking from their analysis of these statements, the working group found that the range of perspectives on the subject was way more nuanced than what the focal question was asking. So this isn't a binary trade-off between public health and protection of citizen privacy. The working group found that lead witnesses shifted between, but at the same time represented distinguished viewpoints or positions as a result. Of their analysis, and the working group recommends that incorporating at least 4 orienting perspectives along 2 dimensions. So if you look at figure 1 here, along 2 dimensions, level of abstraction, so case-orientated versus principle-orientated, and level of subjectivity, others-orientated versus self-orientated. And as you can see in the figure, 4 perspectives are created by the intersections of these 2 scales. The experience perspective is that of the individual citizen or patient in their private capacity. This perspective represents opinions of those who are in favor of opening up personal health information for research, as well as those who express current concern about making any health data available to governments. Compared to other perspectives that are more role-based or aligned with professionals or experts, this experience perspective is based on the lived experiences of citizens or patients, and it's symbolized by an I emphasis in discourse rather than us, them, or you and me. The perception standpoint shows a high level of abstraction since people expressing this view are looking at populations as a whole. It has a subjective orientation, meaning that the decision maker assumes the perspective of a person or group of people acting as their advocate. People displaying this perspective tended to be researching or working on issues of privacy protection or in the area of civil liberties, as we saw through the witness webinar. So in the context of the witness webinar, these individuals were mainly concerned with the protection of and right to personal privacy, looking at it from the scale of entire populations. The observation standpoint was seen to be taken by researchers and primary care health workers reporting on particular cases or facts. This standpoint was less subjective, but it also shows an orientation towards individual patients as opposed to entire populations and is aligned with clinical ethics regarding decisions about the application of technological approaches in addressing COVID-19 challenges. And finally, the interpretation standpoint represents views of experts, so some ethicists or lawyers, and it's very highly abstract and objectivizing, so it's geared more towards the others, as this perspective focuses on the needs of the population as a whole, but tends to view the focus of decisions or actions as being taken on others. So the decisions are being taken for the best interest of society in terms of using technology to collect personal health data. And so the working group sees these 4 perspectives as essential. Like, we need to put these into conversation with each other in order to overcome the challenges concerning COVID-19, public health, and technological innovations. So we can arrive at balanced ethical choices and approaches about public health, technology, and data privacy. So I'm just gonna go through sorry, I'm kind of frozen there for a second. I'm still frozen. Okay, so this is what I was talking about when I mentioned I did an environment scan of technological approaches being used in response to the pandemic. So here you can see a screen recording playing while I speak, showing you what this research looks like. If you're interested in looking at it in detail, you can do so through our policy paper. I'll drop a link in the chat after this presentation. So this research consists of information about the jurisdictions in which these technologies were used, the purpose of use, the types of technologies being used, the stakeholders involved, the types of data being collected, and the public response of privacy experts or citizens if it was known. I know it's moving really fast and you can't read anything, but hopefully you've picked up on some keywords and themes, especially the purpose and type of technology. So you can see things like quarantine enforcement use cases or tracing app, and if it's a Bluetooth technology or blockchain. And then in the next slide here, I've actually pulled out some blockchain use cases that we went through. So the first one you'll see that the jurisdiction was actually multiple because it's the World Health Organization, and the purpose was to curtail the misinformation and enable and verify the accuracy of COVID-19 data. The second one, the jurisdiction was China, and the purpose was a medical supply chain blockchain solution. And so the little explanation there says, as a supply chain includes various actors such as donors, and actors involved in the delivery and warehousing, the blockchain enabled solution ensures the process of recording and verification is tamper-proof and traceable. So yeah, there's a lot to go here, lots of text. I will definitely leave you guys a link if you're interested in looking at everything else. And that is it for me. Thank you for listening.
That's great, Anisha. Thanks so much. And again, just a reminder to our participants to post your questions for Anisha in the Q&A. I'll just say that I somehow don't seem to have access to the Q&A. So for our presenters, I've been posting questions and answers in just the chat. I don't think our regular participants have access to the chat. So it's just a weird way that this is all set up. So in terms of posting links to papers and presentations, we can also make that available to you through the Q&A or as a follow-up to you following the presentations today. So fantastic. Thanks again, Anisha. And I think we're going to now turn it over to our next speaker, who is Artem. So Artem Voskoboshnikov is a PhD student in electrical and computing engineering at UBC. And Artem is going to talk to you about his own research on usable security in relation to crypto asset management. So over to you, Artem.
All right, thanks so much, Vicky. I hope everyone can see the slide. That would be great to get that confirmation, but I think everything looks good on my end. So thanks for the introduction. My name is Artem, and today I will be talking about the research that I worked on during the summer with our collaborators from the University of Innsbruck, Svetlana Abramova and Rainer Böhme. And the title of the paper that is currently under review is Bits Under the Mattress, Understanding Different Risk Perceptions and Security Behaviors of Crypto Asset Users. So before I dive deep into the methodology, I'm just going to briefly talk about the motivation. So as many of you and the participants in this session probably know, crypto assets are on the rise. They get more and more popular. And right now it is estimated that we have approximately, around about 60 million registered users. Currently, we also have over 6,000 different crypto assets. And Bitcoin, while very important, it's only one of them. When it comes to the overall market capitalization, we also have the discrepancy here where Bitcoin approximately accounts for 66% of the overall market cap. However, the other crypto assets still account for over 140 billion US dollars. So the previous work is mostly focused, or mostly qualitative studies have been conducted. And here, researchers have investigated the mental models of the users, their security behavior, the risk perceptions. And because of the small sample sizes, it's very difficult to make generalizations. When it comes to the quantitative studies, there exist quantitative studies, but they're either outdated or very limited in focus. So most studies have only focused on Bitcoin, whereas benchmarking studies in industry have not really looked into the security behavior of users. They have mostly looked into the awareness of the general population when it comes to cryptocurrencies. So what are our objectives, or what were the objectives? First of all, we wanted to investigate the security behaviors and risk perceptions of crypto asset users. We also wanted to identify clusters in this population because, as prior research suggests, prior qualitative work, that the user population differs when it comes to the security behavior. Some users own certain currencies, they behave or they store them differently, and we wanted to investigate if we can actually split up this heterogeneous population into homogeneous clusters. And lastly, we also wanted to present an up-to-date picture of the user population, because the last quantitative study when it comes to security behavior is from 2015, and its focus was only Bitcoin. So to address all these questions or these objectives, we conducted the survey from February to June 2020. We used a combination of deep and broad sampling. So deep sampling is respondent-driven, targeted sampling, for example, convenience sampling and snowball sampling are potential methodologies. And we recruited through, with the help of cryptocurrency exchanges, crypto communities, such as Bitcoin Talk or Reddit, also Twitter. So we recruited 195 participants through deep sampling, and the other 200 were recruited with broad sampling. So broad sampling is traditional random sampling or systematic sampling, and here we use the service provided by Qualtrics and relied on them to provide us with actual crypto asset users. When it comes to the methodology, we wanted to create clusters that are robust within themselves. So we wanted to exclude information such as age, country of residence, or things like that, that could kind of not be generalizable. So we conducted hierarchical clustering on 5 psychometric constructs. First of all, we had the perceived vulnerability, which is simply the likelihood of keys being compromised, the perceived likelihood for the respective participant. Then we had the response cost, which is the financial cost, the time and the effort to protect their private keys. Then the perceived concern, meaning that the level of concern about broader security risks, such as, let's say, privacy risk or traceability by governments. Then the perceived severity, which is the impact or financial distress or personal harm for this particular participant. And lastly, we have the perceived self-efficacy, meaning the ability to secure one's assets or to employ security measures that can protect these assets. And the clustering was done, and we excluded socioeconomic factors because we wanted to make sure that the clustering is robust across sampling frames, countries, age, etc. So what are our findings? We got a dendrogram which suggests that there exist 3 different clusters when it comes to these 5 psychometric constructs. We also see that the bottom cluster, so the red cluster, is comprised mainly of Qualtrics participants that were recruited with the help of the Qualtrics panel. The other 2 were recruited mostly through other channels. When we look at the centroids or 2 constructs, in this case, perceived self-efficacy and perceived vulnerability, we see 3 distinct clusters and 3 distinct centroids. On the top left, the blue cluster, we see participants that have a perceived high self-efficacy, meaning that they are aware of the security measures and believe they have the necessary knowledge that is required to use them. On the right, we have the red cluster. They also have a high perceived self-efficacy. However, contrary to the blue cluster, they perceive themselves as vulnerable. So they are risk aware and believe that they are at risk. And lastly, at the bottom, the green cluster, they're neither very vulnerable or perceive themselves as very vulnerable, nor do they perceive themselves as not vulnerable at all. So they're somewhere in the middle. However, when it comes to the self-efficacy, they are significantly lower. So to actually call these clusters by name, we generated the following labels. The first cluster are the cypherpunks. Here we used the other socio-demographic data that we had to kind of identify these clusters. So these cypherpunks are generally enthusiasts. They have more than 3 years of experience, whereas even 17% of cypherpunks said to have more than 6 years of experience, and they were mostly interested in the technological aspect of the technology. Then we have the hodlers. The hodlers are middle-aged traders that started between 3 and 4 years ago and out of purely financial motivations. So they also trade on conventional markets more often than the other clusters, and this was the main distinction. And lastly, we have the rookies. The rookies are the more casual users. And interestingly, 33% of this cluster was female and 25% were comprised of senior population, which is also significantly more than in the other clusters. When we look at the 5 constructs, we also see a distinction, a clear distinction here. When it comes to the perceived self-efficacy, so on the way on the right, we see that the rookies perceive themselves as they perceive as a low self-efficacy, meaning that they believe they do not possess the necessary knowledge to be able to store their keys securely. Whereas on the other hand, we have the cypherpunks and hodlers that have the necessary knowledge. When compared between the cypherpunks and the hodlers, we also see that the hodlers, so the red cluster in this case, they have higher means when it comes to the perceived vulnerability, the response cost, the perceived concern, and the perceived severity. So they are very, very cautious and believe that they're always at risk or that their assets are at risk. When it comes to the motivations, cypherpunks, as mentioned, rank the technological aspect rather high. They rank decentralization and interest in technology as a very prevalent motivation for them. Further, hodlers are interested in proof of stake and making money off of that. And they also see crypto assets as a store of value. This is unsurprising because 25% of hodlers reported to own more than 100,000 US dollars. And 23% of hodlers trade regularly on conventional financial markets. Interestingly, 17% of cypherpunks prefer not to disclose the owned amount. And 20% of cypherpunks also held crypto tokens. Other clusters, meaning hodlers and rookies, did not hold crypto tokens whatsoever. Rookies were also mostly profit-oriented. However, they owned less than the hodlers. And considering the self-efficacy was also significantly lower than for the hodlers or the cypherpunks. Here we see, again, the motivations for each cluster, and we see the peak at the store of value and the earning money from POS, which are the peaks for the cluster of hodlers. When it comes to the wallet choice, we also wanted to understand how people and why they select certain wallets. For cypherpunks, security guarantees were very important. And on the other hand, for rookies, the convenience of making transactions and the general usability was a very prominent factor. Interestingly, 80% of the general sample reported to use more than one wallet. And this graph, again, presents the percentage for each particular factor that was reported by each cluster. And we see, again, a peak in the green cluster for the rookies, meaning that they had, or that they believe that the convenience of making transactions is very important for them. When it comes to the private key control, close to half of the rookies report to share keys with another entity. Another entity here means that rookies either shared it with a trusted person or an exchange, so a custodian. Cypherpunks and hodlers, on the other hand, prefer to be solely responsible for their keys. Again, this graph shows, or this figure shows the distributions. And we see for the rookies, so the green cluster again, that me and another trusted person and a service exchange are more prevalent than for the other clusters, which is understandable because they have a low perceived self-efficacy, meaning that they do not necessarily know how to protect themselves, or at least not as well as the other clusters. When it comes to the wallet usage, we also wanted to see what kind of wallets are the most popular among the user populations. And we see that the software and mobile wallets were particularly prevalent across all groups. We also wanted to see what kind of wallets are used for high amounts or for large amounts of crypto assets. So we wanted to investigate that relationship. So for cypherpunks, they preferred offline storage for large amounts. And this was also significantly correlated. Interestingly, for more than 10,000 US dollars, the probability of cypherpunks storing cryptocurrency or crypto assets in a hardware wallet increased from 32% to 46%. And for exchanges, a significant positive effect between the choice of exchanges and one's trust in custodians was also related. And this was particularly prevalent for the hodlers that are very profit-oriented. For risk perceptions, as I've already mentioned, hodlers are the most concerned with potential risks, for example, privacy risks. Cypherpunks, on the other hand, were the least concerned. However, we observed a high variance, meaning that there were discrepancies within the cluster themselves. So here we see again that the hodlers were very concerned with being traced by governments, companies, individuals, and while they used exchanges, they were still very concerned that PII, so personally identifiable information, could be leaked by those exchanges. And lastly, information sharing with tax authorities was also a major concern for hodlers. For security practices, we found that hodlers and cypherpunks adhere to security practices more regularly than the rookies, which is unsurprising. So here I only selected 4 practices because of time constraints. So hodlers and cypherpunks, and here I only chose cypherpunks, they use backups more often than rookies. They also employ 2-factor authentication significantly more often, as well as unique passwords for their cryptocurrency wallets. And they also tend to store cryptocurrency wallets in a physically secured location, which is not as prevalent for the rookies. So what does this all give us? First of all, the theoretical implications. What we did in this work, we proposed a new set of domain-specific scale items that are very robust and have high internal consistency. Further, we identified security personas or personas in the context of crypto assets, which are solely based on empirical data. This clustering is stable in both sampling frames. Lastly, we also identified a key management dichotomy between the different personas, meaning that some users or some clusters preferred the custodial wallets, whereas others preferred the non-custodial solutions. And as a minor contribution, we also employed a novel combination of recruitment strategies for crypto assets and are the first study or the first work that used commercial panels to actually recruit crypto asset users. For practical implications, we found that there simply cannot be one-size-fits-all solution for private key management, as it is currently mostly the case. Because we found that different personas have varying requirements when it comes to security and privacy, but also the UX. Therefore, to account for the dichotomy, wallets could provide multiple profiles to account for as many users as possible, or at least for these different personas. Alternatively, hybrid wallet approaches could also be used for particularly novel users, for example, as an option to allow encrypted seed backups or something similar. So as a conclusion, we found and empirically verified that the crypto asset user population is indeed heterogeneous. Personas that we have identified are solely based on empirical data, and they have different requirements in terms of security, privacy, and UX. And lastly, there's simply no silver bullet for key management, be it for crypto assets, but also in further context when it comes, for example, to central bank digital currencies or something similar. And yes, that's about it. Thank you so much.
Artem, thank you so much for presenting your really interesting study findings. And we're going to keep on with our plan to hold off on questions until the discussion of questions till the end. But I believe that there are some questions in the chat, if not in the Q&A, and I encourage participants to post your questions in the Q&A if you do have some. And we'll now turn to Chelsea Palmer. Chelsea is a master's student in library science at the School of Information, and she's going to be talking about her work on climate change and blockchain. So Chelsea, over to you. And we're not hearing you, Chelsea.
Yeah, I could not figure out how to unmute from presenter view, sorry.
There you go.
Try from beginning. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, thank you, Vicky. So I'm just going to start my little timer here. And yeah, as Vicky said, I am in the iSchool finishing a master's in library and information science. I really appreciated the last presentation because I felt very represented. I would consider myself part of the cypherpunk crowd. And I have been a community educator for about 5 years in the Bitcoin space. So this is actually focused on an Ethereum design project. And I think it's very interesting that myself and a number of other Bitcoiners over this summer supported some Ethereum prototype design. So I'm just going to give a quick overview. First, I will lay the context of the use case. Then I will explain why the foundation I worked with is so enthusiastic about specifically deploying this on Ethereum. I will address the methods that I kind of cobbled together into a multidisciplinary toolkit. And then I will focus on how valuable Vicky and Dr. Feng's question-led system design framework ended up being in the production of technical specifications for this prototype. And finally, I'll just go over what was produced from this and what's currently underway to see that prototype through to success. So the use case that I worked on was I collaborated with Blockchain for Climate Foundation, a local organization that's been around a couple of years, and they have been seeking over that time to put the Paris Agreement on the blockchain. Now, what is the Paris Agreement? That is the United Nations Climate Change Coalition's landmark 2016 agreement to support international coordination combating climate change. So what this means in practical terms is designing a mechanism in which all participating countries can set nationally determined contributions for reducing carbon, for basically greener practices and more environmental processes. And the Paris Agreement itself, which was ratified in 2016 and has a number of participating nations, including Canada, it gave preliminary outlines for what a successful carbon credit trading mechanism would look like. Now, some of the challenges that I've outlined here are like their Articles 4 and 6 of the Paris Agreement give some specifications around how carbon credit trading should go. The most important element here is that nations get to determine their own credits values. Essentially, they get to make claims about their reductions of carbon. And then it's up to us as the world to ratify and decide in a free market sense which of those we value most. So while there was no specific framework for how to establish provenance here, we see immutable digital ledgers. If we create a system which links those to country profiles, allows people to navigate and determine what claims have been made, that would allow for public eyes on this. Similarly, the Paris Agreement requires a lot of collaborative governance among the participating nations, but it doesn't really give much in terms of prescriptions for that. So smart contracts would actually allow us to start prototyping, okay, let's include this governance mechanism and see how that works. And I think what's really valuable there is the ability to try things out and in the short term with experiments and then show to the UNFCCC, hey, this is how this worked, and get kind of a collaborative dialogue going. Because we can't just invent governance from scratch, or else it'll be a set of rules that no one's really necessarily behaving. I think we see that happen a lot in sort of bureaucratic environments. And one of the biggest criticisms of blockchain and cryptocurrency is the relative slowness of exchanges because of being verified by decentralized networks of computers. The Paris Agreement, as it's currently framed, this carbon credit trading mechanism, gets reconciled manually every 2 years. So in contrast to that, the ability to just see all of the ecosystem activity at any given time on a public blockchain ledger is really valuable. So I'll just touch on quickly. The stakeholder benefits of putting it on a blockchain would be for the UNFCCC, it takes a lot of pressure off of them to define how to actually implement so many elements of this really ambitious, lofty, global undertaking. For the climate sector, people who are passionate here and who have deep knowledge about carbon reduction and things like that will have mechanisms to be involved and have equitable oversight. National parties will be realistically incentivized instead of just incentivized on paper, because if your claims can be traced and watchdogged by the public, you're going to seek to make as strong of claims as you can. And then the general public would be empowered to be a part of this. Even if they're not trading carbon credits 5 years from now, they can monitor this system, they can have a say, they can comment and share on social media. So why Ethereum? I just want to point out that one why Ethereum is this beautiful artwork that's part of their public assets. And I feel this is really representative of how vibrant, passionate, and engaged the Ethereum community is, that they do make stuff like this. For this use case, as I've described it, you see that the core element needed here is a mechanism for public trust and engagement. So it's been really important to the founder of Blockchain for Climate Foundation, Joseph Pallant, since the beginning to create community connections. And particularly, I think he's been led towards Ethereum because of how excited people are in that ecosystem. Developers are building like fascinating DeFi tooling and stuff that could be decentralized finance is what that's short for. It could be adapted to meaningfully play with the data output from the system we're currently designing, so that we don't just have to build everything from scratch. And that's a final point that I just make as a mostly Bitcoin maximalist and a bit of a cynic in the space, is that if we have all our excited, informed, engaged developers building their own blockchains from scratch all the time, we're actually losing a lot of collaborative opportunities and a lot of value there. So the methods that I used, I'm going to touch for a moment here, because this veers into sort of the business world. And I liberally borrowed from my employer, Countable Web Productions, which uses a user-centric agile methodology to build complex web apps. So agile methodology is a project management approach, which is in contrast to the traditional waterfall methodology, which, even if you haven't heard of it, we've all experienced. It's when tasks are just constantly coming at you in a gushing flow and you're just dealing with them as much as possible. Agile was developed, and other methodologies like it, to sort of create a cyclical prioritization of what arrives on a team's plate. It's from the software development industry, but it's been adopted to a lot of contexts. So I used Agile to really, because when we started this 4-month project in June, we weren't sure exactly what we were going to be doing. We knew that Blockchain for Climate had been doing great research and community building for more than 2 years, that they were really at a place where they had great R&D, and they wanted to see a clear pathway towards designing a prototype or minimum viable product. So as I'll go into after this, I'm really glad I went with Agile, because there were a lot of surprises in our approach here. And this is a screenshot, this large thing here, this is a screenshot of the Agile Manifesto from agilemanifesto.org. And it's basically about, rather than prioritizing what has been written on a list, you prioritize what is currently going on, and you have generative conversations with your team. And in particular, I found the Agile proximal document user story very useful for our purpose, because we had a lot of big ideas about the very theoretical implications of the Paris Agreement long term, but we needed to define for a developer what the minimum viable product would enable basic users to do. So we wrote that in informal, natural language, and it's just literally a user will be able to create an account and use MetaMask to log in, things like that. So that's something that if you hand a developer a bunch of dreams, it's going to be very hard for them to implement. But if you hand them these sorts of specifications and add all the data fields that are needed and stuff like that, you're going to have a much better time. So I want to now turn to the value of applying theoretical frameworks in sort of, private sector contexts, in design contexts. I thought when bringing in Dr. Lemieux and Dr. Feng's question-led DLT system design framework, which I had been exposed to in the Blockchain Summer Institute in May, I thought that would be a nice value add to this project. We'll have an extra document with some answers to these questions, but it actually ended up taking over most of the middle of our project. It was so useful and generative. we scheduled multiple meetings where our multidisciplinary team like dove back into the different sections of this and the really rich questions. So for me, this really created a shared language. The first benefit of that was it helped us define the scope and the priorities of the MVP that we plan to see this year versus what the system would be long term. Similarly, the questions around temporality, although we had talked about long-term versus short-term, et cetera, the questions around temporality helped us really define that and have a more meaningful conversation. And importantly, it also helped us discuss what might go wrong, which is a really big win for the engineering mindset, getting that before you have started building. Questions from the information subsystem about what type of data is collected and how it's stored helped us really validate the natural privacy by design approach we were taking. Since blockchains are designed to retain information indefinitely, you want to collect as little information as possible and store things that shouldn't be on the blockchain off-chain. Finally, the technical subsystem questions around interactivity with the Internet of Things and sensors and things like that helped us realize that even though we have no immediate plans for that extensibility, others may want to interoperate with this carbon credit trading platform with sensors, supply chain stuff. So we really need to keep that in mind. So overall, using this framework helped us highlight our unknown unknowns together. And it was really, I have to say, like, I didn't come to this like, hey, we're going to prove that this is a great useful tool, but it really was. I have given you a little snapshot of the system design here. I'm trying to keep it minimal on the actual system design information because there is currently an awesome technical intern with previous Ethereum and Solidity coding experience who is building the MVP on Ethereum's Rinkeby testnet. I don't think anyone could really lap blockchain for climate on this because they have been working on this for so long. At the same time, don't want to tip our hand too much. But basically what will happen in this MVP is country accounts will be able to be made using MetaMask, and they will send contract calls to an ERC 721 smart contract. Now, we went with 721, which is a type of non-fungible token, because a lot of very specific information needs to be stored on each token and in relation to it. They have certain categories and fields that need to be defined. So a 721 allows that easier, or more easily rather. And then OpenSea, the 721 NFT trading platform, has been nice enough to white label their code base for their front end. So the intern is forking that so that public viewers, even in the prototype that's just kind of a test, public viewers will be able to navigate there and see all of the contract activity and see the tokens that have been made. Now, this original prototype is going to have an admin function, just so if something goes terribly wrong, things can be changed. But the goal is for the full rollout to have no admin and operate in a truly decentralized way. So I will drop in the chat after this the two most important links here. One is the Blockchain for Climate Foundation's website themselves. I really recommend you keep an eye on them. If two Bitcoiners were willing to work on this all summer and even got super excited about it, then that says volumes for those who don't kind of feel like blockchain is a censored word for Bitcoin at times. It definitely brought me around. It brought me around to being a little bit less cynical. And we're going to have Joseph Pallant as a special guest at UBC's Blockchain Club 2 Fridays from now. We're going to have him focus on what his experience has been with the Ethereum community and like why he loves it. Because that really is like myself and my colleague Alex, who worked on this, we worked on this because of the strength of Joseph's contributions to this space. And I think that's something to keep in mind, is that in blockchain, this is a really emerging field. And so relationships are currency. People want to communicate and they want us to be, you know, you got to be open with each other. That's something that really matters in a community this small. You can find me on the Blockchain Pathways campus on Twitter sometimes or on LinkedIn, and I primarily want to shill that we have UBC's on paper Bitcoin Club, informally Blockchain Club. We need to vote at an AGM if we want to change the name from Bitcoin Club, because it was created back when there was pretty much only Bitcoin. But anyone can join us. So we finally have a sign up link, and I will drop that in the chat as well. And I will share the sign up for that and the save the date for Joseph's talk when it's done in the Blockchain Pathways Canvas. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Chelsea. You know, another really super fantastic and interesting project, and you know, really appreciate you also, you know, making people aware of the upcoming events that the Bitcoin and Blockchain Club, whatever it resolves to, is going to be offering, and what great events those look to be. And so I'm not sure that I see some new questions on the Q&A. I know that everybody's been responding to some questions already on the chat and the Q&A. So I think that I'll take this opportunity to just invite some reflection from our presenters, and those who are listening can also chime in by posting your thoughts in the chat or in the Q&A. Oh, I do see one question in the Q&A before we get started. So let me just open that up, and that's yeah, that's a question to you, Chelsea. So I'll let you go ahead and look at that question. But at the same time, I want to ask our participants to focus on a reflection on the multidisciplinary nature. So we've had you know, 4 presentations. She's got a co-op job, so she's had to bow out to go to a meeting for her work. So so Jianyu, Artem, and Chelsea, and the rest of us. Oops, sorry about that. Getting some interference from the dog here in my place. So the question is really, what have you learned from each other that jibes with maybe some of the theoretical and empirical findings that you've had? What have you learned? What surprised you? How can we you know, generate new knowledge across the disciplines? I'm going to turn my mic off now because my dog is making a lot of noise. So yeah, so I'm just going to open that up to anybody who wants to take a stab at this. You know, it strikes me that we, you know, let's just take a reflection. Jianyu was talking about selfish mining and Ethereum. Chelsea, you guys have built on Ethereum. What are maybe some of the takeaways? What can we learn from each other there? What are some opportunities to deepen or further the research there that maybe we can see, if any? I mean, it's a generative kind of discussion, generative questions. So I'm interested in you. You want to take a jump at it, Chelsea?
Well, I'm if I can just really quickly answer the question that was in the Q&A. I'm kind of stuck on that, just because it's a
wherever your mind is taking you.
Okay, sweet, because it's a very concrete question. I was asked about, for the project, why Rinkeby and not another testnet? Is there any benefit on this, and why not just truffle sweet? So, very good question. In general, no test nets on Ethereum behave the way Ethereum's live blockchain network actually behaves. My understanding from collaboration with a number of devs is that Rinkeby comes the closest. But what we really want, rather than just prototyping in Truffle, what we're hoping to do on Rinkeby is create some example country accounts and then have people, people behaving almost as like gray hats attempt to misuse the system. So what getting a prototype going is really about seeing how people can engage with and try to break the logic of our system. Because I would argue that in crypto economics, that's most of what we're usually looking at, and most of the big hacks we've seen are about people behaving and interacting with smart contracts in novel ways that their designers never would have thought of. I guess that actually transitions well, perhaps, to Vicky's point, is that my experience was in further getting an understanding of how many things will inevitably fall outside of any of our given expertises. I don't think you can pluralize that, but essentially it reinforced the efficacy of just having really open and sometimes seemingly like sky-high philosophical conversations about these, because all of the time, despite the Blockchain for Climate team having worked on this really intently and from a really informed space, and me being in blockchain and crypto a long time, we kept stumbling across ahas or questions that we couldn't answer. And the inability to answer that question helped us figure out a path around, whereas we might have just not done what we didn't know existed. You know, we wouldn't have even addressed the question. So I think my biggest takeaway is that we need as multidisciplinary of teams as possible. And we need to get our expectations out in prototype form so that we can let the live public at them and have them try to break them.
Yeah, Chelsea, thanks for that reflection. I want to put Jianyu on the spot there. If you're still there, Jianyu, you can unmute yourself. And I want to ask you, you've modeled selfish mining in Ethereum, and of course we had a little sidebar chat about empirical results versus theoretical results, and could we empirically validate whether we did see more opportunities being actually exploited in Ethereum for selfish mining. But I'm wondering, like how sensitive might the results also be to the types of use cases? So when you're modeling theoretically, you're sort of looking at the consensus mechanism and how it kind of natively works. I'm wondering if we look at the incentives of the miners themselves or exploiters of selfish mining opportunity, if use case matters at all. It doesn't matter that we're using a public Ethereum, the public Ethereum network for carbon trading or versus trading crypto kitties. Is there what's the where does the human element maybe come into this, if it comes into it at all? So a little reflection on, I don't know if you've thought about that or if you think that might be important, and if so, how you might model that.
Oh yeah, so for the research purpose, and usually we consider simple questions, and we through the theoretical results, we want to raise concern, and so concern of the blockchain community. And for example, in Ethereum, when some research points out their incentive mechanism may have some question or problems, and the whole community can propose some proposal to fix the incentive mechanism. I think the research work can provide some guidance for the implementation of protocols, and somehow the Ethereum platform is much more complex. So yeah, there are some gap between the research work and the real implementation and the real attacks. So yeah.
So in other words, there's lots of interesting research to be done still, which is always a fun thing when you're a researcher. Yeah. So it's great to have more new questions to ask. So Chelsea, I don't know if you have any reflections on Jianyu's response, since you've been working deep in the Ethereum community over the summer. So any thoughts? And then I'm going to turn to Artem. Get ready.
Well, it's something that I kind of want to bring up a parallel point, because it's interesting. We can look at the Ethereum community as it currently stands, but the Ethereum community is actually in my non-replicable and just anecdotal experience. It's really where the Bitcoin community was a few years ago. So it's rapidly changing. We see like the rise of all these like gambling schemes, etc., but we also see the movement towards shifting the entire consensus mechanism. So I suspect that we may see a couple of strong threads come out, just like we did with the scaling debates on Bitcoin, where you saw, I don't know that there will be actual forks and movements to other communities, but there's definitely going to be some crazy action. So I would almost, one of the reasons we decided to like prototype on a testnet for our project is I can't honestly say what Ethereum will be even 6 months from now or a year from now. So I would suspect that if there are multiple threads coming out of that community in the next year plus, some of them might fit better with like more enterprise, like what we saw in the Bitcoin forks was like different ideologies and different preferred value sets kind of aligned naturally into things. So I would say that there might be, like, I'm kind of in a wait and see what Ethereum is space, and thus I kind of reserve comment on whether it is fit for purpose for more complex things.
Okay, thanks for those reflections, Chelsea. And Artemi, I wanted to turn to you now and your research on the different personas, which was really interesting to see. And I just wanted to ask you if you, if the personas were fairly consistent across different types of tokens or types of blockchains, because we've seen in Jianyu's research and Chelsea's research, you know, some differentiation between Bitcoin and Ethereum, for example. And I'm just wondering if, you know, if those personas are stable across different types of tokens or platforms, or if there's more nuance to be explored. Maybe you didn't make that a focus of your research, but maybe there were some hints. I don't know. I'm interested to find out.
I mean, for our main goal was because we knew that, I mean, people differ, right? And it obviously is also the case for crypto assets or cryptocurrencies. Some people, they only have tokens. Other people mostly are only Bitcoin holders. So that's why we simply wanted to focus on the perceptions, so that kind of go beyond that, because certainly you could also cluster based on the holdings, right? You could cluster like Bitcoin people with Bitcoin people, Ethereum people with Ethereum people, and then just like see how the perceptions differ there. So we looked into only these particular psychometric constructs and decided to cluster based on them. And then what we did, we looked into how the holdings differ, and interestingly, Bitcoin is still by far the most popular cryptocurrency. So, and also most of the participants owned Ethereum. So I believe that the clusters are robust in a sense that not necessarily when it comes to the holdings, but robust in a sense when it comes to more, let's say, deeply anchored perceptions, like personality traits, if you will. So I believe that these, and this is also an argument that we make, that the findings that we have, or like the results that we have for crypto assets might also be transferable to other domains, such as, let's say, central bank digital currencies, where there's an open debate whether you should provide custodial or non-custodial solutions for the users. So this is simply a, you can say in a certain way, a case study, which might be transferable, be it, for example, for, as I said, CBDCs or SSI systems, which is, yeah, also an interesting future avenue of research.
Right, self-sovereign identity type credential-based wallets. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, so perhaps something more to be explored too, to see if, you know, if they're, whilst these characteristics might be quite stable and identify different personalities, if there's some nuance across the different types of epistemic communities, you know, maybe one could predict that, you know, the cypherpunks are more attached to particular epistemic communities versus, you know, the novices or the hodlers and so on. And the other thing I wanted to ask you, Artemi, is to reflect on if you had to design a, what would be the implications, the design implications of developing a wallet for Chelsea's project? Just to give you a little challenge of cross-disciplinary or cross-project thinking. Any reflections?
I mean, it is a little bit hard to kind of gauge the complexity of the project based on a 15-minute presentation. So it's kind of, I don't want to like go in either direction. So I think to make really decisions based on that, one would really have to look into that. But I believe that generally one thing that came kind of forward through the research that I've conducted, not only this project, but a couple of others as well, that the one solution fits all that is currently employed in the blockchain domain and in crypto asset wallets in particular just doesn't work, because the people are simply too different, and especially with a relatively complex technology as it is the case with, let's say, crypto assets and tokens. That's why you need to have some kind of personalized experience depending on the, in this case, the self-efficacy of the particular person, because you cannot simply have the same interface for novices as you do for 10-year veterans. This is simply not going to work. And so I believe that depending on the use case, you need to provide, or not only on the use case, but also on the user base, you need to provide a personalized interface. Yeah. So, and I think this is also holds also true for other applications, be it, for SSI systems or something else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, this has been a great conversation, and the work that you each have done is really incredible work, contributing to the overall body of knowledge. And I love the fact that through these kinds of conversations we can learn from each other. So as the saying goes, the boat can float higher. We can all learn and co-generate even more knowledge together, and also by sharing this with the broader community of individuals studying and researching in blockchain. We hope you'll benefit from this conversation and the research that has been presented here today, and get in touch with us as well to give us your thoughts, share your own research with us. And we really welcome you to our community and want to participate in the broader community. So thank you again to our student presenters today, Jian, Anisha, Artemi, and Chelsea, and of course to Michelle, who is always doing great at stick handling and organizing everything. The recording will be posted on our website, Blockchain at UBC, as well, I think, on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't been able to stay for the whole thing, or in fact, you've missed this, and you're not listening live to me now, you'll be able to listen later. So thanks again, everyone. Looking forward to our next Blockchain at UBC monthly research talk. Stay tuned, and we'll see you anon. Bye for now.
Thank you.